Hi, I'm Pastor Michael, and I'm just here with another one of our devotional videos as we endure this time apart. And so I would just like to encourage you, if you don't have a Bible, go ahead and pause this video and grab one. And once you get it, go ahead and turn to Deuteronomy chapter 6. We're going to be spending some time there today. And so we're supposed to be on spring break. Does it feel like we're on spring break? Because it doesn't at my house. This isn't how I pictured this day. It's March 25th. When we looked at this on the calendar, Courtney was supposed to be just getting back from her trip to Nashville. I was supposed to be at the church today working on my sermon because I was going to be preaching this Sunday because Pastor Paul and his family was going to be out of town. None of those things happened. Courtney didn't go away. Pastor Paul didn't go away. And it's just kind of been a little chaotic. So instead of all of those things, we have progressed from social distancing to a stay-at-home order. Unless you're essential, you stay at home. And there's a lot of uncertainty with what the future holds. And especially those with school-age children, this is a little chaotic. Brad is in his first year of preschool, and so we're not sure what's going on with him, whether he's going to get to go back this year or not. But they've been spending time doing the alphabet this year, and Brad comes home and he shows us what he has worked on that day, which letter he's been learning to write. And so since we don't know if he's going to get to go back, we got him a little notebook so he can practice his letters at home. And so thanks to the generosity of Annie Lamberson, he has his own little desk now that we have set up in his mom's office right next to her desk. And they sit and do homework together and they have a great time. But we've realized that we can't just stop Brad's education. And everyone's like that. There's a lot of great stories about what the teachers and the schools are doing, trying to reach out to our kids, trying to make sure that their learning doesn't stop, that their education continues even throughout this difficult time of uncertainty. And so they recognize, and I think all of us agreed, that education is important. So even in this time of chaos in our schedules and everything, we have made it a concerted effort to continue educating our students. And so my question for us to consider today is, do we consider the spiritual education of our children as important as their secular education, as what they learn in school? Do we make this a priority? In my previous video from last week, I made the comment that parents are the primary disciplers of their children. And I want to dive into that a little bit deeper today and just spend some time talking about that question. We should be making it a priority to disciple our children. The first thing we should teach our children is not math, it's not science, it's not geography. The first thing that we should teach our kids is about God. And this goes beyond taking them to church. It goes beyond sending them to the junior church program to learn from other adult leaders. It goes beyond getting your kids registered for VBS, which you should do once we get it set up. It goes beyond all of that. It goes beyond praying before meals. It is a consistent and deliberate instruction in what God has revealed to us. And so if you are in Deuteronomy, we're going to start in chapter 6, verse 4. And this is what the Lord says to us. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. These commandments I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk with them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the doorframes of your house and on your gates. Jesus would later say that this is the greatest commandment. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. There is much to say on this topic, but that's not the primary message of this video. But it will suffice for us to know that if we are to do this one single commandment well, we will do the rest of the commandments well. We will, by default, obey God's commands if we do this one thing, because it is the foundation of the entire law. But what I do want to do is I want to dwell on the verses immediately following. The Lord tells us to keep these commandments on our heart. keep them, know them, rejoice in them, meditate on them. Use them as the lens with which we make every decision. They are to be on our hearts. But that's not all. We're not supposed to just know them, but we are supposed to impress them on our children. And the word impress here doesn't really get the message across. Other translations say teach. Some even say teach diligently. But that's getting a little further away from the literal translation. The literal translation is engrave almost. It is, pointed. Elsewhere, this word is used to describe the piercing of a sword or an arrow. Now, we're not saying that we literally engrave these things on our children. We're not supposed to go and just tattoo all of the commandments of God on our children. That's not what the verse is saying. But he's saying impress them on it, engrave it in their minds, hammer it into them just over and over and over again. Our children should know the law of God, and specifically this command: love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. And you'll notice again here that God isn't saying to Moses, you do this, you teach all the children. He's not even addressing the Levites here, the priests, or in our day, the pastors. No, he's saying, parents, impress this on your children. Teach your children. Now, I love the children of our church. I wouldn't be here doing this right now if I didn't love our kids. And I know that you love your kids too. And so I hope that you are taking this responsibility and privilege to heart, because it can be a heavy responsibility. My boys are only 4 and 2, and the stress that they have already put me through makes me wonder sometimes if we are all going to survive for them to grow into adults. But you don't need a theology degree to disciple your children. You don't need to know all of the answers. You just need to be willing. I love how God tells us to do this. He doesn't say, or tell the Israelites, all right, sit your kids down at a desk and stand and lecture them for 40 minutes. He doesn't say, preach a sermon with a main point, 3 subpoints, and some nice alliteration that makes it easy to remember. That's not how God tells us to teach our children. Listen again to how we are supposed to disciple our children. Talk about these things when you sit at home. Talk about them when you walk along the road. Talk about them when you lie down. Talk about them when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands. Bind them on your forehead. Write them on your door frames. Write them on your gates. Can we sum that up for you in one sentence? The best way to disciple your kids is to make it a part of your everyday life. You don't have to sit down and have hour-long family devotions. I mean, that's a good thing if you can do that, but it doesn't have to be formal. It's the way that we live our lives, and how we respond to this coronavirus crisis can be a part of that. Many of us are spending all day with our kids. Are we intentional with that time? Are we taking advantage of that time? Or do our kids feel like their being home is a major inconvenience to us? Impress this upon them. Engrave it on their minds. Talk to them about it. Talk about it with them when we are stuck home together. Talk about it in the morning. Talk about it at lunch. Talk about it before bed. And when things get back to normal, we can still do this. Talk about it in the car, on the way to school, and from school. Talk about it before bed. As we're living life together, impress upon your kids the importance of this command. Love the Lord your God. When they wake up, you can ask them, how can you love God today? Check in with them at lunch. Ask them when you put them in bed, how did you do today, and what can you do tomorrow to do better? Encourage them, disciple them. And I just want to close with one more thing. Sometimes the hardest place for us to have discussions about spiritual things is at home. Because in our homes, we're not putting on a show. We're not, trying to put on our best for someone. Our families know who we are at our worst. My kids, they've heard me yell. My kids have seen me get angry. They've made me angry. They know that I am not perfect. What right do I have to tell them how to live, because they know how dirty, rotten of a sinner I truly am. These feelings, these doubts, they affect all of us. But that's no reason for us to just give up. That's no reason for us to ignore the command that God has given to us to disciple our kids. None of us are perfect. And as parents, we sometimes sin against our kids. It happens. But this is important. This command to disciple our kids is so important that we need to be willing to have these conversations with our kids, even if it means confessing our sin and asking them for forgiveness. We need to be authentic. We need to be real. We need to fight through the feelings of awkwardness and insecurity and enjoy the blessings that come from obedience to our God and obeying His commands. I hope that you will just really take these words to heart, that you will read this passage over and over again, and you can write this down and you can tape this different places in your house. Put it next to where you're supposed to put Ephesians chapter 6. Memorize these words and just remember the wonderful privilege we have of discipling our kids to know and love the Lord.